Welcome back. Good Thursday morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm Maria Bartiromo, and it is Thursday, December 4th. It is 8 a.m. on the button on the East Coast, and I hope you're having a good morning. The House Judiciary Committee sent a subpoena to former special counsel Jack Smith, demanding that he testify at a closed-door hearing on December 17th over his investigation into President Trump. His attorney said this, quote, nearly 6 weeks ago, Jack offered to voluntarily appear before the House Judiciary Committee in an open hearing to answer any questions lawmakers have. Jack looks forward to meeting with the committee later this month to discuss his work and clarify the various misconceptions about his investigation. President Trump also wants to see a public testimony.
The House Judiciary Committee has subpoenaed Jack Smith to ask about his investigation of you. I wondered, for a deposition, I wondered if you'd prefer to see that as a hearing so that the American public can see the questions and the responses more easily.
I'd rather see it probably at a hearing, and there's something really wrong with him. I'd rather see him testify publicly because there's no way he can answer the questions.
A top federal court official defending Judge James Boasberg, meanwhile, in his gag orders, which basically hid subpoenas related to the FBI's Arctic frost investigation. They claimed that the chief judge in Washington was likely unaware that the subpoena's intended targets were sitting members of Congress. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley fired back with this quote, Smith's apparent lack of candor is deeply troubling, and he needs to answer for his conduct. Joining me now is House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan. Mr. Chairman, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for being here.
Good to be with you. You bet, Maria.
So you sent a subpoena to Jack Smith. Yeah. What are you expecting?
Well, we'll see. We know one thing. We've already referred one of his deputies, Thomas Wyndham. We referred him to the Justice Department for criminal prosecution because he tried to obstruct our investigation. He wouldn't answer questions, and we had him under deposition rules, under oath in front of the committee. So we want to know Jack Smith. And never forget Jack Smith's history. I mean, Jack Smith was the guy who was supportive of what Lois Lerner did years ago when she targeted conservative groups around the country. Jack Smith's the guy who put the gag order on President Trump, went and got that. Jack Smith's the guy who mishandled the classified documents he accused President Trump of mishandling. And Jack Smith's deputies, Mr. Bratt, tried to bribe one of the counsels for a defendant when he said to that lawyer, he said, oh, we didn't know you were a Trump guy. We thought you were interested in this judge position. I mean, you can't do those kind of things. So we want to bring in Jack Smith, ask him all kinds of questions, and not the least of which is this whole idea that he was going after what appears to be almost half the stinking Republicans in Congress getting their phone logs and a bunch of other Americans. So those are all the issues we want to talk about. And having him in for a deposition in no way precludes him from coming in later in an open hearing. We just want him in a deposition format first, where you get an hour to ask questions, and then the other side gets an hour. Then you can come back for another hour, not just 5 minutes like members get in an open hearing.
Well, that's right. And that was the point that I wanted to make as well. I mean, you know, people say, oh, why do you want it private versus public? Because public, each lawmaker just gets 5 minutes. And, you know, they can run out the clock real quick and not say anything. So the private interview is really important as well. But I want to get your take also on the judges here. I mean, Judge James Boasberg, I spoke with Texas Senator Ted Cruz about all of this. And, you know, he was one of those people tracked. Watch this.
And I believe that the House of Representatives should impeach Judge Boasberg. Judge Boasberg was the one who made findings that he had no basis for. And when he did that, he took off his judicial robe. He just became a partisan crusader. He joined with Jack Smith in the mission to try to stop Donald Trump from being reelected. Thankfully, the voters prevailed. Democracy prevailed. But I'll tell you what. If, God forbid, Kamala Harris had become president, we would never, ever, ever find out about this. They would have buried their abuse of power. And what's critical, this can never happen again.
This is unbelievable, Senator. Long time. He was also the same judge that gave a smack on the wrist to the FBI agent who lied about Carter Page to try and say that Carter Page was not working with the CIA when, in fact, he was, so that they could spy on him during the Russia collusion story. He was also the judge that tried to stop President Trump's agenda. So, Congressman, what about that? Should James Boasberg be impeached?
couple things. One, this idea that he didn't know, I think that's on him. Maybe you should ask who's this phone number belong to? And if it belongs to someone in a separate and equal branch of government, i.e. a member of Congress or a United States senator, maybe you should know that before you tell the carrier, before you tell Verizon and AT&T. They can't tell that individual that the Justice Department just went and got their phone records. They got mine for 2.5 years. They know who I talked to, who called me, when I talked to them, and how long the call lasted. And if I initiated the call, they knew where I was at when I did so. And they could track that and pattern your life. That is scary. That is creepy. And Jack Smith had that information. For me, for 2.5 years, for Speaker McCarthy, for 2 months, that's crazy. So if the judge signed off on that, he should probably know whose number that individual that number belongs to. If he didn't know that, I think that's on him. Second, you typically don't impeach judges for bad decisions. You have the appellate process. But in this situation, how do you appeal? Because you don't even know. You don't know that the judge has put a gag order and the Justice Department has your private information. You don't even know that. So how do you appeal? So we have one of our members on our committee has filed an impeachment resolution for Mr. Boasberg. We'll take a look at all that. We're not saying we're going to go there, but I think we work through this investigation and we see how it all unfolds. And try to make sure this kind of stuff never happens again.
Well, I mean, how is Jack Smith going to explain himself here?
I don't know. We'll find out when we ask him questions. We got a number. I typically don't like to say on TV what kind of questions we're going to start with, how we're going to move through that.
Yeah.
What I know is our counsel, we have good counsel as part of our committee. They will conduct this deposition. I'll be there. Probably other members will be there as well. And we'll work through this like we do all others. But now we've also passed legislation through our committee on this non-disclosure, these gag orders, for all Americans, not just for members of Congress. We've said this should apply to all Americans. You can't do these for years at a time like they were doing. It should be for a very limited amount of time and for very limited circumstances, if at all. And so that's the kind of legislation we've already passed out of our committee. I hope we pass it out of the House and gets to the Senate and we actually make it law.
Yeah, and I was interested in this debate around this because New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik did secure the inclusion of a key provision that she wanted attached to the Pentagon's annual policy bill, the NDAA. This requires the FBI to notify Congress when it opens counterintelligence investigations into federal candidates, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, no, it's a good piece of legislation or good amendment on that bill. We support that 110%. I hope it stays on the NDAA. In light of what we've seen in the last 10 years, particularly what the weaponized Justice Department did to President Trump, this is definitely needed. I totally support what Elise is trying to get done.
Well, I mean, look, and I'm glad you mentioned it's been 10 years because it has been 10 years that we have been following this and watching all of these political dirty tricks. And that's being kind about what has taken place there in the last 10 years. I've spoken with Mike Davis a number of times on this, and he is adamant that we will see accountability. But you can understand viewers who may say, well, I just don't believe it, because we still haven't seen anybody take the fall for any of this. Here's Mike Davis with me last week. Watch this.
Anyone who politicizes and weaponizes intel agencies and law enforcement to go after their political enemies for non-crimes has committed a very serious crime, conspiracy against rights under 18 U.S.C. Section 241, and this goes all the way to the top of the Obama administration. President Obama, Vice President Biden, Hillary Clinton, James Comey, Clapper, Brennan, Jack Smith, Jay Bratt, Andrew Weissman. There are so many dirty actors in this ongoing criminal conspiracy against rights. These people must be held accountable. I know that the new Miami U.S. Attorney has opened up a grand jury in Fort Pierce, Florida, that's going to be impaneled in January. And I would tell these lawfare Democrats they better lawyer up.
Do you really believe that Obama is going to get indicted?
Presidents have presidential immunity for their official acts. At a minimum, he could be named as an unindicted co-conspirator.
What do you think about that, Congressman?
Well, I'll tell you what we've done. We've already referred two of the individuals that were on that list that Mr. Davis gave, and we don't do this very often. I mean, the facts have to be there. But we sent John Brennan a criminal referral to the Justice Department for John Brennan. We believe strongly that he lied to us when he was under oath in a deposition format when it came to the whole Crossfire Hurricane and the dossier and how that was used in the intelligence community assessment. We also just sent, as I said earlier, Thomas Wyndham, one of the chief deputies for Jack Smith. We sent a criminal referral to the Justice Department for him because he was obstructing our investigation when we brought him in, first for a transcribed interview, then for a deposition. So we referred him. We do that when it is warranted. In these situations, it was definitely warranted, and that's why we took that action. So we're doing everything we can from the legislative branch, whether it's the NDO the Fairness Act that we passed that I talked about on these gag orders, whether it's referring people to the Justice Department as for doing criminal referrals. We will take every action we can, including it's our overall oversight responsibilities that we have under the Constitution. But we can't indict anyone.
Right.
Only the executive branch, only the Justice Department, as you know, they're the ones who can do it. And if we think it's warranted, we will do referrals like we've done.
Well, I mean, what about the fact that a judge dismissed the cases on Jim Comey? I mean, do you think that the DOJ should come back with new charges on conspiracy? You were there. You lived it for this last 10 years.
Yeah, if it's there, they should. I leave that up again to the good people at the Justice Department. Attorney General Bondi, Deputy Attorney General Blanche are doing a good job. I leave that up to them. If the facts are there, they definitely should, because we've got to stop this idea that you can go after your political opponents like the Garland-Biden Justice Department did.
Yeah. All right, let me switch gears real quick before you go. A key vote on the Obamacare tax credit set for next week. What do you want to say about these subsidies? I know Mike Johnson did not want to bring this to the floor, but we got this bombshell report now from the Government Accountability Office, which uncovered widespread fraud surrounding the advanced premium tax credit subsidies. The exchanges, the federal exchanges, reportedly approved fake beneficiaries. They paid them premium subsidies. In 2023, 58,000 so-called dead people were still receiving payments, up to $21 billion going to overpayments or ineligible enrollees. 29,000 involved the same Social Security number used in multiple subsidized plans, Mr. Chairman. I know you're one of the lawmakers who formally requested this investigation.
One Social Security number was used 125 times in one year for all these different plans. It was crazy. They created fictitious people, and they all got accepted. That's how bad it is. One thing I know for certain is subsidies don't bring down price. Subsidies typically increase price. What brings down price and what will bring down the cost of premiums is choice and competition. That's the kind of bill we need. Health savings accounts, association health plans, allowing the kind of plans that families want, particularly young families want a different kind of plan than older families want. So those kind of choices are what we need in our package. I think that's what's coming. This idea that we're just going to extend the expanded Obamacare subsidies to the insurance companies where we just discovered all the fraud that exists, that makes no sense. And never forget, 3 things they told us about Obamacare. Like your plan, you can keep your plan. Like your doctor, you can keep your doctor, and premiums will go down. They were 0 for 3.
Yeah.
0 for 3. They got it all wrong, and now we're supposed to keep subsidizing that? That is stupid.
Yeah.
Let's do something that actually helps families. Choice and competition does that.
Yeah, I remember it well. Congressman, we'll be watching your work. Thanks so much, Mr. Chairman. Jim Jordan on Capitol Hill. Thank you, sir. We'll be right back. Stay with us.